All right, Becky, are you ready? This shit's for you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today, if you're new, first things first, if you're new, my name's Alexandra. You can call me Alex. We are going to be talking about concealing dark circles for mature skin. I've received so many questions about this, asking if I can show like how I would conceal dark circles on mature skin, a mature skin model. I had the pleasure of meeting Becky yesterday, subscriber, and she highly recommended it. So it was actually really funny because I definitely did not think of her as someone with dark circles when I was looking at her with no makeup on. And that's gonna be something that I touch on a little bit in this video. So I also received a request from, oh fuck, who was it? Wrote it down. Jackie on YouTube. The most common comment that I receive from women with mature skin, and let me preface this by saying I am not a makeup artist who does makeup on other people. I do makeup on myself. So all I can share with you are the things that I have learned from my experiences. So first I want to explain some things. As we get older, our under eyes, they become even thinner, even more dry, and even more delicate than they already are, which they are super delicate, especially if you have dark circles. For the most part, I think it means that like, not necessarily that you have like more pigment down here, it's just that like the skin underneath your eyes is even thinner. That's what they told me, which is why you see so much of the darkness. Like basically what you're seeing is like blood vessels and veins, which is why people who have like more hollow under eyes tend to have more like darkness. It's not just the shadows that it's creating, it's also the fact that like the skin under there is just like so damn thin. So it really just gets to a point where it can't handle a ton of coverage. Now, Becky, I didn't think that you had very bad dark circles when I saw you. They didn't seem like they were that intense. So something that I've learned from making these videos is that what looks like the flaws that we think we have, or if we think that we have like super crazy dark circles, they don't look as bad to other people. So a lot of this is kind of about like changing your mind state, especially as you start to age, because you really can't get away with as much coverage using heavy products, using a ton of color correctors. So what I would suggest for more mature skin, especially if you're on the dry side, because a lot of women have said that like, it's just too drying. Like everything is just too drying. They try to like hydrate, they use like eye creams, they use moisturizers, they use primers. They're using like ostensibly hydrating products, but they're still feeling like things are ending up looking cakey. I do have some products that I want to suggest to you and some little like tips and tricks. I'm going to show you how I would conceal mature dark circles. I think the best thing to do is to go for a slightly more natural look rather than something that's going to be like crazy full coverage, and just kind of like embrace your natural under eyes a little bit, which I realize doesn't sound like so much fun. I get it. But as we get older, it's a little bit more flattering to go towards more natural looking, hydrating makeup. So first I want to talk about color correctors, which I have a whole video about color correctors. I will link it somewhere so that you can check that out because it goes into everything. But for more mature skin, I would suggest two color correctors. So I have the Clinique Beyond Perfecting Super Concealer. This is the color corrector in the shade Apricot Corrector. This is a great shade. It's a really nice like warm color. It's a nice lightweight and thin formula. So it's not going to be thick on your under eyes. It's going to be a lot easier for your under eyes to handle it. So I'm going to be showing you this on one of my under eyes. And then the next one is the Becca Under Eye Brightening Corrector. This one is in medium deep. It's a little bit more warm, a little bit more on like the peachy side. It's maybe a little bit more neutral than this one. This one over here is a little bit more like orangey peachy. What I like about this is that the formula retains a lot of moisture. So if you have very dry under eyes, this is going to like really help hydrate if you feel like your eye cream just isn't doing enough. So when it comes to your color correctors and your concealers, rather than going for something that's going to be like so thick, so full coverage, or like a matte finish, don't do that. Look for something that's going to be a little bit more thin, a little bit more wearable, and it's going to retain more moisture. So under this eye, I'm going to be showing you the Clinique one first. So I'm taking just the tiniest little bit on this little brush from MAC, and I'm placing it right here where the darkness is. I'm going to take a little bit because I get some darkness there. And then if you want to, you can take it like in the inner corner. And then I'm going to use just a small little brush to blend that out. I'm going to use this one from Delium Tools. This is the 788. It's just like an angled concealer brush. I did hydrate my whole face before I did this, and I used the Glossier Priming Moisturizer. I personally think this is fantastic for under your eyes. It's super hydrating. It's thick, but like thick and hydrating, but it doesn't feel like oily. So I think it would be fantastic for mature skin. You have to be careful with some eye creams because a lot of them, especially if they are like super hydrating, it makes it kind of hard. It kind of creates like this barrier, and then sometimes your makeup will not really like go over it nicely. It'll kind of like break up and look like, I don't know, even more cakey. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is just tapping lightly. So this is where I want like the most warmth to cover up my darkness, and this is basically the point of color correctors is to prevent the gray color from coming through. So you can see that that's like a very sheer formula. It's just like adds a little bit of color. It's not thick at all. Now for concealers, I would recommend using something that's going to be more on the like radiant hydrating side. You could possibly get away with using something like Tarte Shape Tape, but you want to make sure that underneath your eyes is super hydrated before you do that, because it is a more matte finish. So if you have very dry under eyes, it can end up like throughout the day looking like cakey and creasy. So you want to be careful. What I would suggest for a more natural looking finish would be the Glossier Stretch Concealer. This is like a really, really nice natural looking kind of like light medium concealer. But what I love about it is that similar to the Becca color corrector, it retains a lot of moisture. So what I'm going to do is apply this with a brush. I'm actually going to use that same Delium Tools brush, and I'm just going to like literally pick it up from the pot. And you don't want to do like sweeping motions because that's just going to remove the coverage of your color corrector. If you feel like, I feel like I put a little too much down, so I'm just going to like tap it off a little bit. And then I'm going to gently press it over. So I'm putting kind of a lot down because I want to make sure that I'm getting like the coverage that I want. And just be easy with it. Like try not to move it around too much because it's going to remove the color corrector that we placed down. So I'm going to start off by just like placing it like that. And then I'm going to take what's left over on my brush and just like wipe it off on a paper towel. And then using sort of the same motion, I'm going to just like gently buff around the edges first. So we're blending it into our skin or into our foundation if you want to wear foundation. This will also work if you don't want to wear any foundation. You can just kind of like color correct or conceal like red areas. And then I'm going to lightly pat over top. And then as I get like towards the ends or the edges, I'm just going to use a lighter motion. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that like this, the color corrector kind of like warmed up this area. So we don't have that like sallow gray anymore. And the concealer looks like super dewy and hydrating. Now, if you're very dry, or if you find that concealers tend to dry out on you, I wouldn't even set this, especially if you prefer more natural looking makeup. Like if you don't go in with like crazy eyeshadow or like really dark brows or anything like that, which is something that I would recommend if you are like 50 and plus anyway, because it's just gonna end up making your skin look like way more youthful. And dude, hydration is just like where it's at. What I love about this concealer is that it really moves with you really well, like throughout the day. If you feel like you do need to set it, honestly, I just wouldn't, because I don't really know that many hydrating powders that like are very good. So I just wouldn't. If you find that like it creases no matter what, or if you have a problem with creasing, I would keep a little brush like this with you, and then throughout the day, just tap. Just tap in the areas that need a little bit of blending. If you don't want to have to carry around a brush, you could literally just use your finger just to go really, really lightly, look up and just tap, and that will like blend out. And what's really nice about these kinds of formulas is that they wear really well. So like as they kind of like fade throughout the day, it actually looks like way more natural than if you were to have like full coverage concealer with like a powder. As that wears, it ends up just kind of looking like cakey and gross. I have found that. So that is the first option. You can still see like a little bit of darkness, but if you notice, like as I move, it really just kind of makes me look like a little bit more awake and alert, and like my under eye is nice and warm. So it makes me look a little less dead. You know what I mean? But it's still like super natural and hydrating looking. Now, if you need more coverage than this, what I would suggest is going in with the Becca concealer, because this is a little thicker. It's going to retain more moisture. So I'm going to use that same little MAC brush, which is it's like a flat concealer brush. Fuck. I don't know what it says. L42, 242S, I think. I don't know. I use this so much it's coming off. So I'm picking that up on this flat brush, and I'm going to place it right in here where I need it. This color is pretty nice. It's kind of neutral. Could be a little bit warmer, but it's not bad. And I'm going to use my Delium Tools brush to blend that out. You want to focus the corrector in the area where you really need it. It's going to look pretty dewy. Blend in any areas where you don't really need that. So you can see that does a nice amount of color correcting, but like it's obviously a little bit orange, so we need to put concealer down. But my under eye does look like nice and hydrated, and it did a little bit of concealing. There's a tiny bit of coverage there. Now I'm going to go in with a more full coverage foundation, but I want to use something that's still going to retain enough moisture so that I don't end up looking like super crepey throughout the day. So for much fuller coverage, but something that's still going to like wear with you throughout the day, that's going to retain the moisture, I like to use the It Cosmetics by Under Eye. This is in the shade Light Fair. I'm actually going to apply it with my LC Cosmetics Velvet Sponge. I need to wet this a little bit. Making sure that your sponge is damp is going to help keep your under eye nice and hydrated. You can also spritz it with like a dewy setting mist. So I have this one from Glow Recipe. This is the Watermelon Glow Ultra Fine Mist. This is super dewy. Or like the Tatcha Dewy Skin Mist is fantastic. Find something that's going to be like maybe more skincare based, and that will really help it like retain moisture. So that's another little trick. Basically, you want to just like layer a bunch of really hydrating things if you're feeling like you're not getting enough moisture. So now my sponge is nice and dewy, and I'm actually going to apply the concealer right to the sponge. So I'm using a tiny amount because this is very full coverage. It's thicker. That might be too much. We shall see. But what's nice about this concealer is that, like I said, it retains its moisture. It's also like very flexible, so it moves with you really nicely throughout the day. And I'm going to use my sponge to pat this over the color corrector. The shade is maybe a little bit too light, so make sure that you're picking one that works best for your skin tone. But it's super full coverage. And when I want the most coverage, I like to use a sponge. If I'm going for something that's going to be a little bit more natural, I like to use a brush. But a sponge really helps you focus it like exactly where you want, kind of presses it into the skin. So you don't want to drag, you want to make sure that you're pressing into the skin. If you feel like you're removing coverage, go a little slower, you know? So obviously this is a lot lighter, but you can see there's much more coverage over here. So those two products worked really well together. The Becca Cosmetics concealer, because it is dewy, is also like going to help retain all that moisture. I know I keep saying that, but that's what's so important. So we're layering a lot of, just a lot of really hydrating products. I actually think maybe this other concealer that I used over here was a little too sheer. So this is probably your best bet. Once again, I would not use any powder. I would either keep your sponge or keep a little brush in your bag, and then throughout the day, just kind of like blend it out. You can also, again, use your finger. And if you're feeling like you're just losing hydration throughout the day, keep a little mist in your bag, mist your face. Trust me, it makes your skin look like youthful, dewy, gorgeous. Try to avoid powders. Try to avoid like really thick or matte finishes. Tarte Shape Tape probably isn't going to be for you. Jouer concealer probably isn't going to be for you. You want to look for something that's going to be a little bit more radiant, a little bit more dewy, because for mature skin, that's what's going to keep your skin looking like youthful and healthy. The more hydration, the better. I don't want to say that you need to sacrifice coverage, but you may have to sacrifice a little bit of coverage so that it doesn't look like heavy or cakey and it doesn't dry out your skin. I'm really hoping that this video helped. I know I don't have like a mature skin model here. I said that like if I could, I would do a tutorial on my mom. She's lucky, she doesn't have dark circles. And I don't think my dad would sit for it. So they also live on the opposite side of the country. Hopefully these tips help you. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions. Again, I'm no expert in, handling mature skin and makeup, but from what I've learned, this is the best course of action for dark circles and mature skin, or very dry skin. So if you have any products that you think are fantastic, like eye creams, concealers, color correctors that are great for mature skin, that are super hydrating, they're nice and lightweight, that aren't going to like weigh down or overwhelm the under eye, please let me know in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. This side looks great, huh? It's pretty damn good. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.